Amara, you missed the windows in the west hallway again. The voice of Miss Loretta snapped from behind an antique chest. Her stern tone bounced off the polished marble floor like a judge's gavel. I'm sorry, ma'am, Amara replied, quietly, brushing a bead of sweat from her temple. I'll get to it right away. She moved with fluid grace, practiced from years of disciplined service. The Freeman estate was a mansion wrapped in secrets and silence, stretching across 3 stories with halls full of gold-framed ancestors, imported sculptures, and floors so clean they mirrored your reflection. Amara had worked here for 5 years. She knew the rhythm of the house, the moody flicker of the lights when the generator kicked in, the creaks in the staircase, and most of all, the moods of the man who owned it, Malik Freeman. Malik was a fortress in human form, tall, distant, his skin deep like molasses, his jaw carved sharp, his eyes cool as a rainstorm. He barely spoke, not even to staff. To him, they were invisible, parts of the machinery that made his luxury life flow. And Amara? She was just a pair of soft hands and silent steps in the background. She had come to the city years ago with dreams too big for her wallet. After struggling to find work, a cousin landed her the job at Freeman Estate. The pay was good. Good, enough to send money back home to her mother and 2 younger siblings in rural Georgia. That was all that mattered. She kept her head down. While the other maids gossiped in the kitchen or rolled their eyes at Miss Loretta's strict routines, Amara stayed quiet, steady, and unseen. But she noticed everything. She noticed how Malik only wore black, gray, or navy, how he took his coffee bitter and silent, how he only relaxed when he was alone at his piano late at night, his fingers dancing over the keys like they were whispering a story only he understood. She also noticed the change in his energy whenever his ex-girlfriend, Simone, visited, strutting around like she still belonged. That man don't even know your name, Keisha would say, folding sheets in the laundry room with a dramatic eye roll. Don't waste your time even trying to catch his eye. He, made of granite, sis. I'm not trying, Amara would reply with a soft smile. I just work here. But truthfully, something inside her longed, not for love, but to be seen, even just once. Her room in the servant quarters was small, shared with another maid who snored like a freight train but had a kind heart. Her bed was narrow. She didn't complain. She kept a folded picture of her family under her pillow and touched it every night before she closed her eyes. Work was nonstop. Miss Loretta was as firm as a military sergeant. If you want to last in this house, you move like air, she'd bark while checking for specks of dust with a white glove. One Thursday evening, after scrubbing silverware until her knuckles ached, Amara passed the study and paused. Soft piano notes floated through the heavy wood door. Malik was playing again. She closed her eyes, letting the music wrap around her like a warm shawl. It was haunting, aching, the sound of someone who had cried without sound. Girl, are you mad? Keisha's whisper broke the moment. She had appeared beside her holding towels. You want to get caught? You think he won't fire you if he sees you eavesdropping? He doesn't even know I exist, Amara whispered back. Exactly, and it's better that way. Men like him don't see girls like us, and that's how we stay safe. But still, Amara stayed, not because she hoped to be seen, but because that music, it felt real in a house where everything else was polished and fake. Malik's life was precision. Every morning started the same. Black coffee, crisp newspapers, high-level emails. Meals were brought directly to him by the head butler. He never looked up, never thanked, never smiled. And yet Amara felt drawn to him. Not to his wealth, not even to his looks, but to the Malik no one saw. The one who played the piano like his heart was bruised in places he didn't dare show. Her days were long, filled with sweeping, ironing, polishing, and dodging Loretta's sharp tongue. But Amara was known for her softness. She comforted new maids during their first crying session, shared her dinner when pay was late, and always remembered birthdays. You got a soul too bright for this cold house, Keisha would say, sipping hibiscus tea on their break. My smile don't cost nothing, Amara would reply. But that smile masked loneliness, the kind that settles in your bones when you're always in the background. It was just a normal day. An ordinary one. Until the phone rang in Malik Freeman's study one rainy Monday morning. His mother was calling. And with that ring, everything began to change. Malik Freeman stood at the tall glass window of his study, hands tucked in the pockets of his crisp slacks, eyes fixed on the rain-soaked garden outside. The sky was a soft gray, moody and silent, matching his mood exactly. His mornings usually followed a precise rhythm: bitter black coffee, Wall Street headlines, and emails dealing in million-dollar decisions. But today, something broke the pattern. His phone vibrated on the edge of the polished mahogany desk. He glanced over and sighed. "Mama," the caller ID read. He answered. "Malik, my darling," came the warm, high-energy voice of Mama Freeman, the only person in the world who still called him by his full first name like he was still her baby boy. "Good morning, Mama," he said, voice calm but distant. You sound half alive. When's the last time I saw that face of yours, eh? If it weren't for Facebook, I'd think you disappeared." Malik cracked a faint smile. "Been busy with work." "You're always busy. Now listen, we're doing something special next weekend. Your father and I are celebrating 60 years of marriage. 60, can you believe it? That's beautiful, congratulations. There's going to be a grand dinner at the family estate. Everyone's coming. Your sisters, your cousins, the Johnsons from Atlanta. Even Simone and her folks will be there." Malik's jaw tightened. Simone. Of course, his mother had invited her. "I still don't understand why you two broke up," Mama Freeman continued. "She's such a sweet girl. Her mama and I go way back to church days. She still asks about you." He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Mama, do I really have to be there? You've had anniversary parties before." "I always come." His mother's tone snapped from sweet to stern. "Malik Freeman, you will be there. You are my son. This is 60 years of marriage. You will come, and you will not show up empty-handed again. All your siblings bringing their partners. Don't come alone this time." He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. "Fine. I'll be there." "Good. And please don't bring one of those business consultants you hang around. Bring someone serious. We're tired of guessing your love life." The call ended with a flurry of instructions. No white wine this year. Arrive before 5 p.m. Wear traditional, not that usual suit nonsense. Malik dropped the phone on his desk and leaned back in the leather chair, staring at the ceiling. "Bring someone," she'd said, like he had a woman hidden in his closet. His mind flipped through faces. Every woman he'd dated lately had either vanished or shown more interest in his bank account than his heart. And Simone? That wound still sat, deep. He wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of seeing him single again. He sat forward, drumming a pen on the armrest. Maybe he could hire someone, but no, too obvious. His family would smell a fake from a mile away. He leaned over and pressed the intercom button. "Yes, sir?" came the voice of Miss Loretta. "Can you come to my study, please?" A few minutes later, she entered. Tall, dignified, braids streaked with gray, her presence always calm and controlled. "You called Mr. Freeman?" He stood. "You've worked here a long time. You know the staff well, right?" "Yes, sir. I know each one of them. I need a favor. Unusual, but important." He crossed his arms. "My parents are having their diamond anniversary this weekend. I'm expected to attend with a woman." Miss Loretta raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I need someone who looks good, carries herself well, and won't embarrass me in front of Simone." She folded her arms, lips tightening in thought. "Sir, most of the women on staff aren't trained for that kind of public performance. You'd be setting them up to fail. I'm not asking for a performance, just someone who won't fall apart." She hesitated. "There is one," she said carefully. "You may not have noticed her, but she notices everything." He frowned. "Who?" "Amara. Amara Wells. The quiet one. Works hard, keeps to herself." Malik blinked, trying to picture her. A vague image surfaced. Slim frame, warm eyes, always moving quickly. She speaks well? He asked. Fluent. She went to college, you know. Has a degree in sociology. She's just humble. Doesn't flaunt it. He paused, processing. She's attractive? Very. Not flashy. But she's got the kind of beauty that grows on you, the kind you don't forget once you truly see it. Malik turned toward the window, then back to Loretta. So, you're suggesting I ask Amara to act like she's my fiancée? If you want to impress your family and make Simone regret leaving, yes, sir. He exhaled through his nose. Ask her for me. Miss Loretta shook her head with a faint smile. No, sir. If you want this to work, it has to come from you. A woman like Amara deserves to be asked directly. It'll mean more. He nodded slowly. Fine, I'll speak to her myself. But as Loretta left the room, Malik felt something strange stirring. A maid. As his fiancée? The idea was ridiculous. And yet, it didn't feel wrong. Not at all. The late afternoon sun cast warm gold onto the walls of the Freeman estate as Malik Freeman stood in the foyer. Motionless, he stared down at the floor tiles like they might give him courage. For a man who regularly closed 8-figure deals and negotiated mergers without blinking, what he was about to do shouldn't have felt so personal, and yet it did. His footsteps echoed down the marble hallway as he made his way toward the servant quarters. Each step felt heavier, slower. He wasn't sure what he was nervous about. Rejection? Embarrassment? Gossip? Maybe all of it. He paused at the doorway. Inside, Amara was polishing the handles of a cabinet, her movements smooth, focused, graceful. The sun streamed through the nearby window, lighting up her face. And for the first time, Malik really looked at her. Not the uniform. Not the role. Her. Amara, he said. His voice came out softer than intended. She turned quickly, startled. Good afternoon, sir. He cleared his throat, eyes momentarily avoiding hers. Can we talk, just for a moment? Amara nodded slowly and set the cloth aside. Yes, sir. Is everything all right? Let's step out to the patio. They walked side by side in silence. The garden was in full bloom, fiery hibiscus, golden cassia, and the sweet perfume of lilies carried by the breeze. Malik leaned on the railing, looking out. I'm in a bit of a situation, he began. Amara waited, hands clasped politely in front of her. My parents are celebrating 60 years of marriage this weekend. It's a big thing. Family flying in, old friends, a full guest list. He hesitated. My ex will be there too. Amara's brows lifted slightly. Okay. I don't want to show up alone, he admitted, letting the words settle between them. My mother's already pushing for answers. My ex is going to be looking for cracks, and I asked Miss Loretta to suggest someone who might accompany me just for the event. He finally turned toward Amara and looked her directly in the eyes. She mentioned you. Amara blinked. Me, sir? He nodded. She said you were kind, smart, well-spoken, and beautiful. A faint blush colored her cheeks. She looked away, lips parting slightly in surprise. That's very kind of her. Malik stepped closer. His voice lowered just a touch. I know this is an unusual request. I know it's not in your job description. But I'd like to ask, would you be willing to help me? Just for that evening. Pretend to be my fiancé. Her mouth opened, but she couldn't form the words. The wind stirred around them, but her body stayed still, except for the slight twitch of her fingers. Before you answer, Malik added quickly, I'll make sure you have everything. Outfit, hair, transportation, I'll cover it all. You won't have to lie about anything other than that night. It's one dinner. And then we go back to normal. The silence hung thick. Amara's voice was barely above a whisper. Why me, sir? Malik rubbed the back of his neck. Because you carry yourself with grace. Because I trust you, and because you won't make a spectacle of it. She looked down, then slowly met his gaze again. Her voice was calm, steady. Let me think about it. Of course, he said, a flicker of relief in his chest. Take your time. Just let me know by tomorrow. He turned and walked back into the mansion, hands in his pockets, leaving Amara on the patio surrounded by blooming roses and the lingering scent of jasmine. She stood frozen for a long time. Then slowly, her fingers reached out and plucked a red flower from the bush beside her. She twirled it between her fingers, her mind spinning with emotions she couldn't name. Inside, Malik sat at his desk with a glass of whiskey, swirling the amber liquid and staring into nothing. He had just asked his maid, a woman he barely knew, to pretend to be his fiancée. It was ridiculous, and yet he couldn't stop thinking about how calm her eyes were, how she didn't panic, how in that short moment she carried more dignity than most women he'd dated. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was the smartest decision he'd made in years. One thing was certain. The lines between roles, employer and employee, man and woman, had just started to blur, and there was no going back now. The air inside the Freeman estate was thick with the usual mix of lemon polish and old money. Amara, still dressed in her blue Maid uniform, moved quietly through the hallway like she had for years. Invisible, unnoticed. But not today. Not since Miss Loretta pulled her aside with a raised brow and a whisper. Mr. Freeman wants you to accompany him as his fiancée. Her heart had not stopped fluttering since. She walked into the laundry room, her steps shaky, her thoughts spinning. Keisha stood by the dryer, folding towels in rhythm while humming an old Burna Boy song. Girl, you look like you've seen an angel or a ghost, Keisha said, eyes narrowing. Amara exhaled. You won't believe what just happened. Talk now. Stop making suspense like Nigerian movies. Amara lowered her voice. Mr. Malik asked me to go with him to his parents' anniversary party. Keisha dropped the towel mid-fold. Say that again. He wants me to pretend to be his fiancée, just for that night. There was a second of stunned silence. Then, Keisha squealed and smacked Amara's arm playfully. Girl, that's not a favor, that's a divine appointment. Did he say shopping too? Spa? Hair? Did he mention money? Amara laughed nervously. He said he'd cover everything. Outfit, transformation, the works. Keisha clutched her chest. Ah, this is what we call levels. Babe, you better not mess this up. Go and glow. Slay for the ancestors. And if you can, grab me that red clutch I showed you online. Keisha. Don't play with me, I'm serious. I want to see you shining like a Nollywood bride. Later that afternoon, Amara stood outside Malik's office, her fingers trembling as she knocked. He looked up from his laptop, his expression unreadable. Come in. I'm willing to do it, she said, voice soft but steady. If you're sure you want me. Malik stood up slowly, grabbing his car keys. Let's begin. First stop, the mall. You're going to need a complete transformation. Amara's eyes widened. Today? He gave a rare, brief smile. No time like the present. They drove in silence toward one of the most exclusive shopping plazas in the city. Everything gleamed. Crystal storefronts, chandeliers inside boutiques, and employees who spoke in polished tones. Amara clutched her purse, feeling out of place among the luxury labels and polished marble. Malik, however, walked beside her, with the calm authority of someone used to commanding rooms. Inside a high-end boutique, a stylish attendant with tribal marks and 4-inch heels recognized Malik immediately. Welcome back, Mr. Freeman. He nodded once. She needs a full look. Dress, accessories, everything. The attendant blinked at Amara, clearly surprised but hiding it behind a professional smile. Right this way. Soon the dressing room was a flurry of fabric and color. Satins, lace, embroidered silk. Amara tried on dresses while Malik waited outside, arms crossed, watching each entrance with careful judgment. No, he said to the first dress. Too loud. Another. Too plain. Then came a deep emerald green gown, sleek and graceful, with a slit that stopped just below the knee. When Amara stepped out, Malik's gaze paused. Much better, he said, his voice low. Elegant, confident. Amara caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. But they weren't done yet. Next came a visit to the spa. Manicure, pedicure, skin treatment. Her hands trembled as they soaked in lavender-scented water, but Malik sat beside, her scrolling his phone like it was just another day. You good? He asked without looking up. She nodded. Just not used to this. Get used to it. Just for a little while. Then came the salon. Her sleek bun was taken down, and her natural coils were washed and stretched under the skilled hands of a smiling stylist with golden twists. Let's give her a soft updo, the stylist said. Something modern, but queenly. Amara stared at herself in the mirror as her curls were shaped and pinned into a regal crown. Her skin was glowing, her lashes curled softly, her lips shimmered with rose gloss. For the first time, she felt like a woman worthy of being seen when she stepped out in the emerald gown, nails flawless, hair styled, heels delicate. Malik nodded again, more slowly this time. You clean up well, he said, voice tight. Amara chuckled nervously. Thank you, sir. He didn't respond right away. He stared at her for a second longer than necessary, then turned toward the entrance. Let's go, he said. You've got a role to play. As they walked out of the boutique into the setting sun, their shadows stretched long across the pavement. Shoppers turned their heads, not at Malik, but at the stunning woman beside him, and Amara, for the first time, walked in silence, not as a maid, but as a mystery. The next morning, sunlight streamed gently into Malik Freeman's private study, casting a soft glow on the walls lined with books and leather-bound journals. Amara stood near the large bay window in her newly tailored outfit, nervously smoothing the hem of her blouse. The deep green from the day before had been traded for a more casual, yet elegant look, a soft ivory top tucked into a flowing skirt, her nails still perfect, her hair now styled in a low, elegant twist. Malik sat across from her on the couch, legs crossed, holding a small notepad like a teacher prepping a student for finals. Okay, he said, tapping his pen. Let's run through the story again. Amara inhaled slowly. We've been together, first 8 months. Right. And we met where? She smiled slightly. At a charity gala for displaced students. You said I looked familiar and asked if I went to Morgan State. He nodded. And you said yes. Perfect. Her brow furrowed gently. Isn't that too polished? Like a Netflix script? Malik smirked. A little, but it sounds noble. The Freeman family loves noble. He turned a page in his notebook. Now, where do you work? She raised a brow. In real life or in this fantasy? In this fantasy. Okay then. I run a grassroots literacy program for girls in underprivileged neighborhoods. Self-funded, of course. Now you're thinking like me, he said, impressed. Amara chuckled, easing into the role. So what's our favorite restaurant? Easy. Mama J's on 3rd Avenue. Best jollof in town. Casual enough to be believable, classy enough for a second date. Okay. When did you propose? He paused. I got down on one knee during a weekend trip to Charleston. On the pier. Sunset. Wow. Romantic, she whispered, almost caught, off guard by how convincing it sounded. They continued rehearsing small details, favorite memories, inside jokes, the kind of shared history that families would test them on. At some point, the space between them grew easier. Malik started to smile more. Amara laughed freely. He looked at her, really looked, and began to notice the curve of her mouth when she was focused, the glow in her eyes when she found something amusing. Amara, in turn, noticed that Malik wasn't always composed and sharp-edged. He softened in the corners when he laughed. He had a boyish charm hidden deep under his billionaire armor. Later that afternoon, Amara returned to the servant quarters to freshen up. Keisha was already perched on her bed, eating chin and watching a TikTok video. The moment Amara walked in, Keisha sat up. How far with Olga Freeman? She asked, wiggling her eyebrows. Amara rolled her eyes. Keisha, please. Don't please me, Keisha said, standing and pointing at her. You think I don't see how he looks at you now? Sister, that man is falling. You dey make him dey blush. Amara bit her lip and turned away, trying to hide the smile sneaking up on her face. See? I told you, Keisha cried, laughing. You're not even trying and you're glowing like Lagos in December. We're pretending. Don't get carried away. Babe, Keisha said seriously, pretend all you want. But a man that rich, that fine, spending this much effort? It's not all for show, something's cooking. Amara flopped onto her bed, sighing. Let's just survive this party first. Keisha grinned and raised her water bottle. To survival. And soft life. Back upstairs, Malik stood alone in his study, the notepad now forgotten. He looked at the reflection in the glass. At himself. Something about the past few hours was shifting his energy. This was supposed to be a simple favor. A little ego repair job. A lie with a shelf life. But now, sitting across from Amara, hearing her laugh, something about it had felt honest. Too honest. And for the first time in a long time, Malik wasn't sure if he was playing the role anymore. Malik Freeman's sleek black Mercedes rolled to a smooth stop outside his parents' estate, a sprawling property with flower gardens stretching like royalty's carpet. It was already alive with movement. Valets in matching vests directed guests. Luxury cars lined the driveway like a showroom of generational wealth. Malik stepped out first, dressed in a hand-embroidered black agbada with gold stitching. His beard was freshly shaped, his confidence layered like his cologne, bold but controlled. He walked around to the passenger side. The door opened slowly, Amara stepped out, and the world stopped for a second. She wore the emerald green gown they had chosen, graceful, fitted, flowing. Her hair was styled in soft waves that kissed her shoulders. Her lips shimmered in rose. Her presence was undeniable. Gasps echoed softly. Guests turned to stare, not just at Malik, the powerful heir, but at the woman on his arm. He extended his hand and Amara took it. Together they walked up the steps like a couple walking into a future they had chosen. Inside, the ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, gold-trimmed drapery, and a live saxophonist playing soft highlife. Trays of cocktails floated past. Families laughed in clusters. Malik's mother, Mrs. Freeman, elegant in a lavender lace booba, turned at the sight of them. Her eyes lit up. "My son," she exclaimed, standing. "You made it." He greeted her with a brief hug. "Happy anniversary, Mama." His father stood beside her, dressed in white with a regal walking cane. "Malik," he said warmly, shaking his hand. "Glad you're here." Then his father's eyes shifted to Amara. "And who is this stunning young lady?" Malik slipped a confident hand around her waist. "This is Amara, my fiancée." There was a brief pause. Mrs. Freeman's smile never wavered, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "She's beautiful," she said. "Welcome, dear." "Thank you, Ma," Amara replied softly, curtsying with respect. But before the moment could settle, a familiar voice floated through the air like perfume turned poison. "Well, well, Malik." They turned. There she was, Simone, his ex. Hair in a sculpted braided crown, skin glowing, dress tight and smug. Her eyes ran over Amara like she was measuring fabric. "Hi, Simone," Malik said, voice neutral. Simone's lips curled into a tight smile. "So this is the woman who finally tamed Malik Freeman." Amara smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." "She's gorgeous," Simone said, smiling wider. "Fitting. Though I can't say she's better than me." Malik's eyes flickered, but before he could react, Amara turned slightly toward a waiter and took a glass of water with perfect poise. The dismissal was subtle, graceful, royal. Simone blinked. "Well," she said, sipping her champagne, "let's see how long this fairy tale lasts." But Malik wasn't listening. His eyes were on Amara, glowing, composed, powerful in her quiet. For a moment, he forgot they were pretending. Later in the evening, the music shifted to soft jazz. Guests milled about, sipping wine, exchanging stories from family reunions and business deals. Amara stood near a carved column, sipping her drink. Malik was a few steps away, laughing with his uncles. Then, it happened. Simone approached again, her wineglass tilted like a threat in disguise. Amara, right? Yes, Amara replied calmly. We didn't really get a chance to talk earlier, Simone said. Tell me again, where did you and Malik meet? At a charity fundraiser for literacy programs, Amara said, voice smooth. In D.C. Last summer I was volunteering. Malik was one of the main donors. Oh? Simone sipped. What month? June, World Refugee Day, the 20th. A few guests nearby looked over. Malik's father tilted his head slightly. Simone raised her brow. And what did you say you studied? Linguistics and African Studies. My thesis focused on the evolution of language in post-colonial West Africa. Even Malik, mid-conversation, turned his head toward them now. Simone blinked, her grip on the glass tightening. Well, she said, voice thinner, that's unexpected. Amara smiled. Education isn't limited by background. I work with my hands, but I think with my mind. Simone's face froze, 1 second too long. Then, you certainly know how to hold your own. I read a lot of Chinua. Achebe and Maya Angelou, Amara said, voice silk. They teach you how. Malik let out a low breath. He hadn't realized he was holding it. And for the first time all evening, he wasn't pretending. This wasn't just the girl in the gown. This was a woman who could stand in any room and own it. The celebration lingered into the night, lit by chandeliers and the sound of clinking glasses and distant laughter. Amara stood on the terrace now, away from the noise, her emerald gown catching the moonlight. Inside, the celebration hummed, speeches, toasts, cousins telling loud stories. Malik was somewhere near the bar, talking to an uncle about business in Johannesburg. But even with the music and chatter fading behind her, Amara could still feel his eyes on her throughout the night. Something between them had shifted. It wasn't just a performance anymore. She had owned the room, spoken with grace, made Simone look like a child trying to compete with a queen. And Malik had watched her like a man watching a sunrise he didn't expect to see. Later that evening, Amara returned inside to find him slouched at the corner bar, nursing his second glass of whiskey. She frowned. You should slow down. He looked up, eyes a little hazy but still sharp. I'm fine. You're going to mess up this whole act if you get drunk, she said, placing a firm hand on his wrist. He raised both hands in mock surrender. Okay. I'll stop, just needed to breathe a little. The night had been long. His smile had been stretched tight for hours. His shoulders carried the weight of judgment, expectations, family politics. By the time they made it to the guest wing, Malik was swaying slightly. Amara helped him out of his agbada, folding it carefully before guiding him to the bed. He collapsed onto the edge with a soft groan, then suddenly reached out and caught her wrist. She gasped quietly. Amara, he whispered, eyes glassy but sincere. You're so beautiful. I never noticed. Not like this. You're drunk, she said gently, trying to loosen his grip. No. It's not the whiskey, he murmured, pulling her closer until she sat beside him. I mean it. You're stunning. You're smart. You've been in my house all this time and I was too blind to see you. Malik, she whispered, unsure what to say. His hand trembled slightly as it brushed against her arm. I love you, Amara, he said. I swear. I could marry you tomorrow. I don't want this to be pretend. Her breath caught in her chest. The words rang louder than the music downstairs. You're saying things you'll regret in the morning, she said, heart pounding. No, I won't. I've never felt this before. You're different. You don't want anything from me. You see me. Not the money, not the power. Just me. And that terrifies me. Amara looked into his eyes, and even through the haze of whiskey she saw it. Sincerity, raw and unfiltered. Then, just as suddenly his head tipped back onto the pillows, his eyes fluttering closed, his lips still mumbling, "I love you, I love you." She sat frozen beside him, staring into the darkened room, her heart in her throat, the echo of his confession still hanging in the air. The morning sun crept through the thick curtains, painting gold onto the white sheets. Amara stirred first, slowly blinking as her mind replayed the night, the confession, the closeness, the moment everything blurred between reality and pretend. She turned her head. Malik lay beside her, bare-chested, one arm over the blanket, peaceful still, but the peace didn't last. His eyes opened seconds later, dazed, then aware, then alarmed. He sat up quickly. "Amara?" She looked at him calm. "Good morning." He looked down at the sheets, his shirt on the floor, the soft blush on her face. "Wait. Did we?" His voice cracked slightly. She nodded once. "Oh, God," he whispered, rubbing his face. "I was drunk. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "Stop apologizing," Amara said softly, sitting up and wrapping the blanket around herself. "You'll make me feel guilty for something I don't regret." He blinked at her. "But it was your first time, wasn't it?" She nodded again. "You still went through with it?" She smiled faintly. "Because I wanted to. But you deserve more than a man drunk with guilt." "It wasn't just guilt," she said. "You were kind. You asked if I was okay. You stopped halfway just to make sure. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't wrong either." Malik looked at her like he was seeing her again for the first time. "You're not just brave," he said. "You're something else." They sat in silence. Honest, fragile silence. "I don't know what this means for us," Malik admitted. "I don't want to hurt you, but I'm also not ready to pretend like nothing happened." Amara met his eyes steady and clear. "Then don't," he nodded. "You're not my maid anymore." She raised a brow. "Oh?" He reached for her hand. "You're the woman I want. I don't care what anyone says. Not my mama, not Simone, not society. I want to do this right. With you." Amara exhaled slowly. "Then let's survive this. Weekend first, Malik." He grinned softly, brushing a curl from her face. "Deal." A knock came from the door. "Sir?" It was a maid's voice. "Breakfast is ready downstairs." Malik cleared his throat. "Tell them we'll be down shortly." Amara stood, moving slowly as she reached for her clothes. Malik watched her, not with guilt this time, but with awe. Just before she stepped into the bathroom, she turned back. "I don't regret it, but I won't let it define me." He nodded. "That's exactly why I'm falling for you." And just like that, she disappeared behind the door, leaving Malik sitting in a room filled with quiet truths, the echo of love, and the beginning of something real. The Freeman family dining room glowed under the massive chandelier, casting warm light over the long mahogany table. Silver platters of fried plantain, hot yam pepper stew, eggs, pastries, and bowls of fresh fruit covered the center, like a feast from a Nollywood royal wedding. Amara walked in beside Malik, their footsteps in sync. She wore a soft lilac blouse tucked into a flowing cream skirt. Simple. Elegant. Her face was bare except for a light gloss on her lips. Malik kept it casual. A white button-down, gray slacks, and confidence that had been restored by a few hours of clarity and courage. As they entered, the room went still for just a breath. Jason, Malik's mischievous younger brother, raised a brow with a slow grin. Emile, the diplomatic middle child, smirked behind his teacup, and their sister Justine, stylish and sharp-eyed, leaned forward slightly, analyzing every detail like a courtroom attorney. "Good morning," Malik said, pulling a chair out, for Amara before taking his seat beside her. "Good morning," his mother replied, her tone neutral. "Hope you two slept well." "Yes, Ma." Amara answered politely. Jason laughed under his breath. Y'all must have slept real well. Not even a whisper from your wing last night. That's a first, big bro. Malik narrowed his eyes at him. Jason. What? Jason shrugged. Just saying, the house was unusually quiet. Jason, stop stirring, Emil said with a smirk, reaching for a piece of fried breadfruit. Justine tilted her head toward Amara. So, how's our future sister-in-law feeling this morning? Amara gave a soft smile. Grateful. A little nervous, but mostly grateful. The table eased back into motion, clinking spoons, folded napkins, coffee being poured. But the energy remained tight, like everyone was waiting for the next big moment. It came quickly. Mrs. Freeman set her fork down, dabbed her mouth with a napkin, and fixed her eyes on her son. So, Malik, she began, her voice calm but heavy with purpose. When are the wedding plans starting? The table froze. Malik paused mid-bite, then slowly set his fork down. He glanced at Amara. Her gaze was steady, waiting, trusting him. He looked back at his mother. Soon, he said simply. We've decided. We're getting married. Very soon. You could hear the blink of every eye around the table. Soon? Justine echoed. Yes, Malik said again, firmer. We've talked. We're ready. Jason let out a low whistle. Wow, didn't think I'd live to see the day Mr. Iceheart Freeman got soft. Emil chuckled. It's about time. Mrs. Freeman studied Amara, her eyes narrowing, searching. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. Very well, but just know. In this family, marriage means tradition, honor, and commitment. We expect nothing less. Yes, Ma, Amara replied respectfully, her voice unwavering. Malik's hand found hers under the table and gave it a soft squeeze. Then he stood abruptly. If you'll excuse us, we'll be heading out right after breakfast. Justine frowned. Heading out where? Malik smiled. Weekend getaway, just the two of us. Amara blinked, caught off guard. We are? Yes, sweetheart. He turned to her, smiling. A surprise. You'll love it. Her eyes widened. But I didn't pack anything. I had David handle it, Malik said casually. Clothes, essentials, everything's ready. Mrs. Freeman gave a knowing nod. Smart. Time away will do you both good. Jason leaned over and whispered to Emil. Look at this man. Acting like a whole romantic now. As breakfast wrapped up, polite hugs were exchanged and blessings given. Malik's driver, David, waited by the SUV, engine humming softly, bags already loaded. As Amara climbed in, she glanced at Malik, amusement flickering in her eyes. You didn't even warn. Me. If I had, he said, buckling his seatbelt, you might have said no. Why would I say no? He glanced at her. I don't want you to think I used you. I don't want you to feel like I took your first time and then threw you back into service like nothing happened. This weekend, I want it to mean something. She stared at him for a moment, fingers twisting in her lap. Then he reached over and took her hand. I meant what I said. I don't want this to end as a show. I want to build something real. With you. She looked down at their hands, then back up at him. Her voice was quiet but sure. I appreciate that, Malik, truly. The SUV pulled out from the Freeman estate, winding through the hills and past open stretches of road that faded into horizon. Ahead of them lay silence, nature, time, and a truth that neither of them could outrun anymore. The SUV followed a quiet stretch of highway lined with whispering trees and blooming wildflowers, heading toward the private lakeside resort Malik had arranged in advance. The sky was a perfect shade of blue, the kind that made you forget the noise of city life and the pressure of pretending. Malik drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other resting gently in Amara's lap. After nearly 2 hours, the car pulled into a secluded property framed by stone cottages, a glassy lake shimmering nearby, and a private dock that stretched into the water like a quiet invitation. The only sounds were birds chirping and the soft swish of trees dancing in the wind. David, the driver, parked by the cabin and began unloading the bags. Malik stepped out and walked around to open the door for Amara. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene. "This place is beautiful. It's ours," he said with a calm smile. For the next 5 days, the cabin was warm and rustic, with exposed wood beams, tall windows, and a stone fireplace that smelled of cedar and comfort. 2 rooms, 1 bed, soft blankets, thick rugs, and peace. As soon as the bags were unpacked and the door clicked shut behind them, Amara turned to him. "So you really planned all this?" "I told you," Malik said, gently brushing her shoulder. "You deserve better than being left confused in a mansion full of eyes. I wanted space, just for us." She softened. "This wasn't just about impressing your family, was it?" He shook his head. "It started that way, but no, not anymore." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped to the window, looking out at the lake. "Then let's not talk about them here," she said finally. "No maids, no sir, no Simone, no pretending." Malik crossed the room to stand beside her. "Deal." Over the next few days, they lived like they were the only 2 people on Earth. They cooked together, or tried. Malik nearly burned the jollof rice and forgot to add pepper to the beans, but Amara laughed so hard her stomach hurt. They danced barefoot on the patio to old-school Nigerian highlife playing from a Bluetooth speaker. They took slow boat rides across the lake, the breeze combing through Amara's curls, Malik's arm always wrapped around her waist. They told stories, Malik about being the serious older brother growing up, always breaking up Jason and Emil's fights. Amara about how her mother made the best akara in the neighborhood and taught her how to carry a bowl of water on her head without spilling a drop. They played cards, they built a puzzle, they slept in late, and most of all, they listened to each other, not as employer and employee, not as fake lovers in a social performance, but as 2 people who somehow had been circling each other in silence for years and were finally speaking the same language. On the morning of the 4th day, the bags were packed again. The air was cooler, the sunlight softer. Malik zipped up the last suitcase while Amara stood by the door with her arms folded and a playful smirk. "Malik," she said, "we're about to go back home. What exactly are we telling everyone? Blessing? Miss Loretta? How are we going to explain that we left pretending and came back different?" Malik walked toward her, resting his hands gently on her waist. "We're not explaining anything." "Excuse me?" He smiled. "You're not my coworker anymore. You're not the, maid." "Oh, really?" "Really," he said. "You're my fiancée now, officially." She gasped, stepping back. "Fiancée, huh? Where's the ring then? You haven't even proposed properly." Malik grinned, backing her toward the door. "Patience. I'm working on it." She raised a brow. "And as for the house staff," he said, kissing her hand, "let me worry about them. I run that house." She chuckled. "Last I checked, I was still one of your employees." "Nope," he said. "You've been promoted." "To what, wife in training?" He winked. "Soon to be mother of my children, if you don't start arguing." She burst into laughter and pulled him into a warm hug. "You're crazy," she said, resting her head on his chest. "And you love it." They drove back to the city in quiet joy. No tension, no awkward silence, just soft smiles and linked fingers. As they neared the Freeman estate, the sun had begun to set. The gates opened slowly, and as the car pulled into the driveway, 2 familiar figures came running. Keisha, braids bouncing, reached them first. "Auntie Amara, you're back. I missed you. I done nearly finish all your snacks." Right behind her was Miss Loretta, posture as straight as ever but with the faintest hint of curiosity in her raised brow. Malik stepped out and nodded respectfully. "Miss Loretta, Keisha." Amara stepped out slowly, her hand still in his. "I have something to say," Malik began, his voice clear and steady. Keisha tilted her head. Miss Loretta stood tall, hands clasped. Malik turned to Amara and pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. Amara's breath caught, right there, in the driveway, in front of the people who had once seen her as just another servant. Malik dropped to one knee. "Amara Wells," he said, looking up at her. "I've known power, money, and influence, but I didn't know love until I met you. I don't want to pretend anymore. I want to build a real life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes as she covered her mouth. She nodded furiously. "Yes. Yes, Malik. I will." Cheers erupted, mostly from Keisha, who started dancing on the spot. "Oh my God. My bestie is now Madam. Hey, life has changed, don't forget me, ooh." Even Miss Loretta cracked a rare smile, her eyes glinting with approval. Malik slipped the ring on Amara's finger, a delicate gold band with a single diamond that sparkled like it had waited its whole life for this moment. As they walked into the house hand in hand, Amara leaned close and whispered, "That was sneaky." He winked. "You deserved something real." Over the following weeks, everything moved with quiet intention. There were no over-the-top billboards, no magazine headlines, no viral videos, just whispered joy between two people who had once been strangers in the same house. The wedding was set for 6 months later, intimate, heartfelt, unforgettable. The ceremony took place in a private garden on one of the Freeman family's country estates. The air smelled of jasmine, hibiscus, and fresh-cut grass. Chairs draped in ivory linen curved around an altar framed by arching trees and cascading yellow flowers. Malik stood at the front wearing a royal blue agbada with gold detailing. His beard was lined, his eyes calm. For once, he wasn't thinking about business, legacy, or image. He was thinking about love. Justine, Jason, and Emile stood behind him in coordinating traditional wear. Jason looked like a prince. Emile smirked, with emotion, and Justine. She just kept wiping her eyes, whispering to her cousin, "I didn't think he had it in him." On the other side, Amara's family had arrived from her hometown. Her father wore a crisp white agbada, proud as a king. Her mother was radiant in a rich green wrapper, clutching her handbag and tissue like it was her heart. The music shifted. Everyone stood. Amara emerged, and Malik forgot how to breathe. She wore a fitted ivory lace gown with beaded sleeves that shimmered under the sun. Her hair was pinned into a regal updo with soft curls framing her face. Her skin glowed, not from makeup, but from joy. She walked slowly, her father by her side, her hands steady. Malik's mother gasped audibly. Jason muttered, under his breath, "Okay, wow, but Malik." Malik didn't move. He only smiled, and kept smiling. As her father placed her hand into Malik's, Amara looked into his eyes and whispered, "No pretending now." He replied, "Never again." The vows were quiet, not because they weren't powerful, but because they were intimate, meant for two hearts. "I promise to honor you," Malik said, voice low but sure, "to cherish you, to walk beside you in joy and trials and storms. You brought me back to myself." Amara's voice trembled but never wavered. "You saw me when I thought I was invisible. You made me feel worthy of being loved. I promise to grow with you, to build with you, and to never let go." When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," cheers burst into the sky like doves. Keisha screamed the loudest, "My boss lady, y'all see her now, Anne? Look at our madam." Even Miss Loretta dabbed a tear before pretending she wasn't crying. The reception was full of soft drums, high-life music, and laughter that rolled across the lawn like waves. Malik's mother danced with Amara's mother like old friends. Jason tried to flirt with one of Amara's cousins. Blessing, now upgraded to head table status, took selfies with the cake. Malik and Amara danced slowly under the fairy lights, surrounded by the people who had once watched their lives from a distance, now watching love unfold in real time. And as the night wore on and the stars finally blinked into the sky, Malik whispered in Amara's ear, "I used to think love had to be loud, dramatic, but then you showed up in silence and changed everything." She smiled, her cheek pressed to his. "Sometimes the quiet ones leave the deepest echo, and with that, Two hearts that were never meant to cross. Finally, found home together.